Hey everyone, and welcome back. Let's dive right into this explainer by looking at the silent monster secretly eating away at your hard-earned savings. Seriously, if you've looked at your grocery bill lately and felt like your money is just literally evaporating, yeah, you're not imagining things. Today, we're going to unpack exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how you can build a financial strategy to make absolutely sure your money actually outlives you.
Think of your purchasing power kind of like a fresh, crisp apple. Over time, inflation just comes along and takes a massive bite right out of it. Most people think of their money as just a static number in a bank account. They check their balance, it hasn't changed, and they feel secure. But the reality? Inflation is constantly nibbling away at its actual real-world value. It's this invisible, relentless tax on your savings that just never sleeps. Let's put some real numbers to this to see just how incredibly fast this erosion happens. Okay, so with just a 5% yearly inflation rate, which is pretty standard, 1 million rupees of uninvested savings today will drop to a terrifying 35,000 rupees in purchasing power in exactly 20 years. Think about that for a second. Without you spending a single rupee, more than half of your wealth essentially just vanishes into thin air. That right there is the stark, terrifying reality of the eroding power of inflation.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, the silent wealth killer. Second, beating inflation systematically. Third, the shift to regular income. Fourth, the sequence of returns risk. And finally, number 5, protecting your future portfolio. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the silent wealth killer, why saving isn't enough. Warren Buffett hit the nail on the head when he said, "Do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving." This quote brilliantly illustrates the fundamental mindset shift you need to make. You've got to move from being just a vulnerable saver to becoming a strategic investor. It's really all about prioritizing the protection of your future self, because, as we just saw, leaving your cash idle, that basically means surrendering it to the constant erosion of inflation. So instead of trying to perfectly time the market, which, let's be honest, is virtually impossible even for the pros, you really have to systemize your investing well before your daily expenses even have a chance to tempt you. Moving right along to section 2, beating inflation systematically, the accumulation phase. Enter rupee cost averaging, a real game changer. Think of this kind of like grocery shopping, except instead of crying over the skyrocketing price of tomatoes, you're actually thrilled when prices drop. When the market is on sale and dips, your fixed monthly investment automatically buys you more units of a fund. And when prices go up, that same fixed amount naturally just buys fewer units. You don't have to guess when the market's going to crash or rally. You just stay absolutely consistent, letting the math work entirely in your favor. Let's look at how this works in practice with a systematic investment plan, or SIP. Say Priya invests exactly 1,000 rupees every single month. Notice how in April, when the price is low at just 15 rupees, she bags over 66 units. But then in October, when the market is way more expensive, she naturally buys fewer units. She isn't stressing over the daily news, and she definitely isn't trying to perfectly time her entries. She is simply letting the math average out her costs over time. This consistent approach takes terrifying market volatility and literally turns it into a massive mathematical advantage, systematically lowering her average cost per unit without any of that emotional roller coaster. And by letting time do the heavy lifting, the results are mind-blowing. An investment of just 1,000 rupees a month at an 8% return grows into a whopping 9.57 lakh rupees over 25 years. That means your actual out-of-pocket investment of just 3 lakh rupees has essentially tripled. This is the incredible, undeniable power of compounding. When your returns actually start generating their own returns, you finally have a force strong enough to outpace that silent, relentless erosion of your money we talked about. It is literally the ultimate shield for your purchasing power. All right, section 3, the shift to regular income wealth distribution. Okay, so what actually happens when you finally stop working? Well, the rules of money completely flip. It's crazy, but the skills that got you up the mountain aren't the same skills you need to get safely back down. While an SIP builds your mountain of wealth during your earning years, putting money in and buying units, a systematic withdrawal plan, or SWP, is meant to provide a steady, predictable income stream to replace your paycheck in retirement. You're systematically taking money out and redeeming those units. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? But this transition introduces a completely new, incredibly dangerous threat that catches almost everyone completely off guard. Which brings us to section 4, the sequence of returns risk, when volatility becomes the enemy. Remember how, during your accumulation years, market dips were actually a great thing because your SIP bought units on sale? Well, now, a market dip is your absolute worst nightmare. During retirement, rupee cost averaging morphs into something terrifying, rupee cost ravaging. If you're forced to withdraw a fixed income while the market is completely crashing, you are essentially forced to sell off a massive number of your units at deeply depressed prices just to meet your monthly cash needs. You end up cannibalizing your own portfolio, permanently destroying its ability to recover when the market eventually bounces back. Let's slow down and look at exactly how this plays out, because the difference really all comes down to timing. Imagine two people who have the exact same average returns over a 20-year retirement. The actual order in which they get those returns dictates whether they die rich or go completely broke. Take investor A. They retire and, unfortunately, hit a 15% market crash right in their first 2 years. Because they're pulling money out to live, they're forced to sell so many cheap units that their portfolios simply cannot recover. It's totally depleted in just 18 years. Now, look at investor B. They get steady, moderate growth early on, building up a nice buffer. When they hit that exact same 15% crash 10 years later, their portfolio can totally handle it. After 18 years, they still retain nearly $4 million. So even if the average returns are totally identical, a market crashed early in your retirement drains your savings exponentially faster just because of when that volatility strikes. To really grasp this, we need to look at the staggering, non-linear math of losses. Listen to this. If your portfolio drops by 30% early on, you don't just need a 30% gain to recover. No way. Because your base is now so much smaller, you actually need a staggering 42.86% return just to break even. It's wild, right? And remember, if you're actively withdrawing cash for your daily living expenses during that exact same time, your required recovery rate skyrockets even higher. That is exactly why an early crash is so utterly devastating to your wealth. Moving to our final section, Section 5, Protecting Your Future Portfolio, Defense Strategies. Okay, so how on earth do we protect ourselves from this terrifying math and make sure our money outlives us? We definitely don't just cross our fingers, right? We build a defense. Here's how you build a robust safety net. First up, bucketing. Keep your near-term living expenses in highly stable assets. Think debt funds or cash. That way, if the equity market tanks, you aren't forced to sell stocks at a loss. You just spend from your safe bucket until the market eventually recovers. Second, dynamic spending. Be flexible. When the market is down, maybe tighten your belt slightly and withdraw a little less. Third, before you even retire, you step up SIPs. Every single time you get a raise, increase your monthly SIP by 5 to 10%. This is how you aggressively combat the constant erosion of inflation while you're still working, constantly padding that war chest. And finally, this is my favorite statistic, by the way, working just 3 to 6 months longer has the exact same financial impact as saving an additional 1% of your earnings every single year for 30 years. It's this incredibly powerful compounding boost that delays your withdrawals and gives your portfolio a massive final injection before you transition to relying on it.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this really provocative question. Is your financial strategy truly built to ensure your money will outlive you? Take a hard look and evaluate whether your current SIP and SWP strategies are really ready to defeat both inflation and that sneaky sequence of returns risk. Because, understanding the math of how money grows is really only half the battle. Structuring your money so that it never runs dry, no matter what the economy throws at you or how much inflation tries to erode your purchasing power, now that is where true financial freedom lies. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.